This is a podcast for SPFA 640, Class 4 Experimental Research Designs. So please go through the podcast, let me know of any questions, then I will release a quiz on classes 1 through 4 to take before the next class on the 17th. Each podcast will be approximately 5 minutes in length, so you can either access them through Blackboard or I will also post the link to access them through my YouTube channel. So what we are trying to do in our research is we want to try to establish cause and effect. And so obviously the scientific method, developing a hypothesis, reviewing the literature, that's all important, but what we ultimately want to find is, did your independent variable, so your program or instrument, cause changes in your dependent variable? So remember, your dependent variable is your outcome. The cause must come before the effect in time, so it must precede it. The cause and effect must be correlated. We're going to talk about correlation next week in class, so they have to be related to one another. We'll talk about that correlation does not mean that something leads to causation, but if something is caused by another factor, it has to be correlated with it. But we will go into that much more next week when we cover correlation and regression. And that the cause and effect cannot be explained by another variable, such as age and maturation. A couple weeks ago we talked about maturation effects, that for example with children, they're going to mature throughout the year, so they're a very different child at the end of the school year than at the beginning of the school year. So in order to determine cause and effect, some of these things you've already done. Obviously reviewing your literature. So you can't really do anything until you know what's already been done and what other people have found successful. Get your theoretical framework. So again, use the literature. Develop your rationale for the study, why you think it's important in developing your methods. Application of experimental design. So are you going to have a control group? Are you going to do a pre-test, post-test? So we're going to get into all of that. That's what we're starting now. The correct use of statistical models and analysis. That's part of the whole point of this class, is choosing the right statistical analysis for the type of data that you have and being able to run that. Proper selection and control of your independent variables. Everybody has already selected their protocol, their survey instrument, or you're at least in the process of doing so. So you know what you want to implement, so everybody seems to be okay with that. Appropriate selection and measurement of the dependent variables. What do you want to change? Whether it's the type of injuries, is it balance, is it throwing a ball at a target, is it the amount of minutes that people spend in physical activity? So what do you want to measure in your dependent variable, and can you actually do that? And of course, one of the other things we'll do this semester is correct interpretation of results. So what does it all mean? So running the correct analyses and then understanding what that means, results-wise, and then relating it back to the discussion in ultimately in the previous literature. So what does it all mean? What does it mean for this study? What does it mean for future studies? And how does it compare to the other literature?